Hey everybody, welcome back to another founder session. I'm Jonathan Goss, the founder of Nomad Financial, and our guest this week is going to be, we're really focused on different founders' areas of expertise, things they can learn, things they can benefit from, and this week we really wanted to focus on accelerators. So we have Francis here, who's lovely enough to join us and really provide, as somebody who's comes from that world, a number of years in that world, really provide background and information for people who are considering that as a path for their companies. So first, Francis, why don't you give yourself an introduction? And before you do, we're gonna cheers, because Francis just got a promotion.
Yay!
Cheers to Nam, the man behind the camera. Yes.
Thank you.
So, Francis, you're now the program director at Numa. So why don't you introduce yourself a little, give a little bit of context, and then we'll just have a fun conversation.
Amazing. Yes, so hi everyone, I'm Francis. I am, as of today, the program director of Numa New York. But I've been with Numa now for about 8 months since we launched here in New York City. Before I get into Numa, I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. So I've been working in the startup and tech scene for a couple of years now. Previously worked for another startup accelerator model, actually founded by the managing directors of Techstars Boston, called Startup Institute, where they help people in other industries that want to work in the tech field make that transition. I am also a product of that accelerator, and that's how I got into the community myself. A number of years ago. Before that, I was an opera singer and a music teacher, so have a wide range of creative work across my career.
And to be clear, she's never sung for anybody in this space that I know of.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
but she does. Sit with me in the office with Aviva, and you'll.
There we go. Okay. Now I know.
You'll hear it.
Well, you're not usually sitting out here singing, which would be amazing. Although you do work headphones and a lot of personality. Yesterday was Halloween.
Yes.
So you were dressed as
Tinkerbell. I was inspired by my own hair.
Yeah. And I was dressed as Jon Snow, and we might have been the only two people in the office for most of the day dressed up.
I was disappointed by that.
Yeah.
I expected more grown-ups to dress up.
To have a little fun. That's okay. So back to the topic at hand.
Yeah.
Accelerators, right? If you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking about that as a path, right? Do you guys have a rule set or something you think about saying, this is a reason to do it? This is the value you should get out of an accelerator, or I know there's a various number of programs and trade-offs, but I think you get a high level, what would be the mental path people should have thinking their way through this?
Yeah, so accelerators are always really valuable for a number of reasons. By its name, it's a vehicle to get to a goal in an accelerated period of time. And the reason why it works is because of the educational components that are within curriculum within an accelerator, but really and truly it's about the network. So being able to meet a lot of different experts and mentors over a smaller period of time that is able to help your business grow or get to where it needs to be, whether that's investors, meeting people that are in the financial space, and accountants or legal support. It's really a vehicle for support that that community really drives that being able to get to where they need to be. Got it.
And how about Numa specifically? You guys have an interesting story.
Yeah.
So why don't you share the kind of the history of Numa, because it's fascinating. The direction, it really goes against what most other people have really done in the startup world.
Yeah. So while we've been here in New York for only 8 months, we're actually pretty old. We were started about 17 years ago in Paris. After the dot-com bubble burst, they became kind of the builders of the ecosystem, supporting entrepreneurs, co-working spaces, building up community. And then they were also the very first accelerator in Paris for early stage companies. About 5 years ago, we turned from a nonprofit to a for-profit and raised funding, and then expanded internationally. So we're now actually in 8 countries globally. A lot of early markets as well, emerging markets. So like Casablanca, Bangalore, Mexico City. We're also in Moscow, Barcelona, and one of the newer locations are Berlin and New York. And so depending upon the market, whether it's an earlier market or more established, such as New York. We have different programs. So in New York, we have slightly different than the typical early stage model for accelerators, where it's just an idea, or maybe they have just an MVP. So we focus on international companies that are looking to access and scale within the U.S. market, but they are later stage, so growth stage, have at least $500,000 in funding, have traction and already a product where they are, and then the focus is really on helping them get set up here.
Got it. So really, the marketing engine of attracting entrepreneurs takes place in your other markets.
Yes. Right. So a lot of the reason why we came here is because there was need from our alumni. Yeah. So when also for time zone purposes, New York makes a lot of sense. Also from an industry perspective, over like going to Silicon Valley.
Yeah, and New York's better.
New York's,
sorry, guys.
Yeah, I know. I'm a native New Yorker, so like I don't understand why anyone lives anywhere else. But yeah, and so a lot of our,
as we say, that winter is coming.
Yeah, unfortunately. And so a lot of our startups were already coming to New York. And so there was a need because international founders end up having a lot of the same types of challenges. And so addressing those needs was, important.
And so you guys have a very specific purpose, I think a value you provide. And I'm sure the educational components that founders go through is really specific to that. If you're thinking about going through, you might even be an international founder, and you're thinking about going through different programs, right? They could be applying for Y Combinator, they could be applying for Techstars, right? How should they develop a process for deciding where to apply, what the benefit is going to be? You mentioned the network, you mentioned some of these softer things. What are the decision-making framework that they should have that will allow them to make the best decision as a founder?
Yeah, I think that there are so many now accelerators, even in New York and across the world. There was a point only a couple of years ago that there was like 9 total in the world, right? And so the accelerator model has been growing and adapting. And as a result, though, there are programs that are less legit or give less support. So, founders should actually be asking a lot of the questions of like, what is the structure of the program? How much support am I getting on a weekly basis? So I know like Y Combinator, for example, has an amazing brand name, but the actual like support that startups are getting week to week is much less. There's less curriculum, but there is an amazing brand name behind it. So I think more and more startups should be looking at like who is in the network. So who are the people running the program? Who are the mentors and network associated with it? What are the other startups that have gone through the program? What are the alumni like? What are the outcomes? Numa now has accelerated over 350 startups globally, and have an 82% survival rate, which is really high. So looking at metrics like that to make sure you can get
over 5 years.
Yeah,
which is impressive.
Yeah, so the support is good, and so really paying attention to some of those things, and also your specific needs. There's a lot of verticalized accelerators now as well. So if you're in a specific industry, you know that the mentors and expertise there will be tailored to you. Like for us, it's really about the international founders, and so getting set up here, incorporating visa issues, like. Most general accelerators like Techstars won't necessarily tailor to those specific needs, and so that's why we are catering to those challenges.
Got it. Very cool. And okay, so now you're at the point where people go, all right, I'm going to apply. They're all applying.
Yep.
You're on the other side of the table.
Yep.
What criteria are you guys using to choose who should come in, right? And and what would you tell founders, around that in terms of being prepared, applying for the right place, making sure their application is competitive?
Yep.
What are the things you guys are looking for? And I say this because I've actually, as someone who's judged a few of them for you, so you should give the criteria.
Yeah, for us, again, we're judging later stage companies, so it's a little bit different. So for us, like really showing potential product market fit in the US is good if you've already done some of that research and have some of that understanding. Your prior traction within your own market and understanding there is really important. If you are, but team is always a really important thing. Like knowing who is on the team, what previous progress have you had? Why are you the best one to be executing on this solution? Being really clear in your pitch and understanding of like what your product does. A lot of founders want to get almost too technical a lot of the time as well in terms of like the product features and things like that, but actually keeping it a little bit higher level in terms of what is the problem that you're trying to solve and why your solution is like the best fit for the challenge is really important.
Very cool.
Did I
Very
answer
cool.
your question?
I think so. Maybe I even frame it. What are the things that could kill an application? Right. I think that's a good framework for. We've provided something good framework for understanding what you guys, the process of what you look for. But what kills applications? What are the maybe 3 or 4 things that you guys see that you're like, it's like it's DOA.
Yeah, you'd actually be surprised with how many founders don't end up actually being responsive. Back and forth, and then it's like 2 weeks later and then they're responding. So that tends to be kind of a red flag if someone's not actually being responsive across the process, even if you really like their business, and then they come back 3 weeks later and then they want to re-engage in the process. That's those kinds of inconsistencies are challenging. So that's one thing. I'd say that was probably the biggest thing. It ends up kind of being very clear as you're going along, who is really engaged in the process, who has a really good product and a good fit, who has a good team. So
you guys are effectively picking people you want to partner with.
Yeah.
So it'd be like dating somebody and they don't text you in 2 weeks, or or you're like, oh, we want to work with you, but talk to me in 2 weeks. You're killing that relationship.
Yep. Exactly.
Unless if you're actually behaving that way and you're getting a response from somebody else, like in the scenario, it should be a red flag to you. Like, wow, I'm getting away with this. So that's a red flag. Like, what's going on their end? Where they're accepting this behavior from me.
Exactly. It's just like personal relationships.
Do people need to know or have relationships with Numa or your experience with other places as a path to get in? Is that as important? I know a lot of venture capitalists, they're always looking as a signal that people are soft. It's a soft intro in as opposed to just being cold emails.
That definitely ends up being the collective knowledge and expertise of the network and the other people that surround you is really valuable. So referrals typically end up being really good quality. So if you are able to get a warm intro in, we typically take those conversations with people that are within our network and recommend startups, and we do conversations with them, at least do a 30-minute call, especially for that. So if you are able to get a warm introduction, it's like anything else. If you're looking to get a job, it's the same thing. If you can get, there's going to be, our first round of applications, we got over 600 applications, right? And so, people that actually came to us recommended.
Sorry, not to interrupt you. How big was that class? So 600 became.
So we actually have, delayed start dates. So we start a program every 5 weeks.
Okay.
And so we, between September and January, we'll have 3 startups.
Okay.
We do small on purpose because they're later stage and their needs are so much more detailed than typically a early stage founder needs.
So effectively, the first application you guys did, you had 0.5% of chance of being selected.
Yeah.
Good luck out there, guys. You need all the help you can get. A little bit of luck. So people make it into the program. You guys have this rate, 82% of people still around. What are the keys that people need to be aware of once they step through the door of how to take advantage of the program best and find their highest odds of success, right? We know luck is always going to be a big factor of this, so there's no guaranteeing it, but there are decisions you can make that increase your odds. What are those things for you guys?
Coaching founders through how to even utilize the program is really important, especially if it's a startup that has never gone through an accelerator before. Our program, since it is for later stage startups, often a lot of these companies have already gone either through Numa or other accelerators. But really for any accelerator that you go through, it's really about leveraging the network. So even if someone's not relevant to you, always follow up with anyone that you've met. The founders, the VCs, the entrepreneurs that you're meeting as you're going through the program are there to support you, and they want to give their time to see you be successful. Oftentimes, there's a lot of mentor whiplash that happens as a result is one of the challenges, where you're hearing so many different opinions, and sometimes they are differing. So figuring out, who are the people that you trust, that you feel like can actually most help your business, and kind of navigating your the varied perspectives that you're hearing through that, and talking to those trusted people to help you make the best decisions possible is really important, because you end up hearing a lot of different things when you're going through a program. And do people stay engaged with their mentors after they graduate? Is that a theme as well that you guys see? Yeah, absolutely, and that's really important, right? You come to an accelerator and you end up exponentially building your network through all of the people that you're meeting, both the other founders in the program, the different mentors, experts, people that you are working with, and so continuing those relationships as you go on happens. And a lot of times the founders stay friends. Actually, when we did our launch event at Google a few weeks ago, we had 3 Numa alumni on stage, and 2 of them were from the same class, and they were like, they stay in touch, they're excited to see each other, so it becomes almost like a family or a network that you have for life.
Which is valuable, because as you're going through this experience, particularly as a founder, you can be very lonely.
Yeah.
And having people around you, I find, going through similar experience, means when you have those really, really bad, shitty days, right, to be frank, that you have somebody who could pick you up and be like, these things happen to everybody. It's not anything unusual. This is the standard test you have to go through. You still have to come out the other side of it, but it's normal.
Yep.
And then when you have your wins, you have more people to celebrate with.
Exactly.
Right? It literally is a win-win by having it.
More people to cheers with.
More people to cheers with, exactly. And so, given kind of this success rate of founders, are you guys requiring them to do the educational components? Is that part of the expectation setting, that we're going to set up these sessions you have to attend, and if you don't, there's a risk of being kicked out of the program?
So it's not like that for our accelerator. It is for others in terms of having to attend specific sessions. But unless you're going to learn something, then it's basically just like a consultancy, right? Or someone that's just giving you intros, right? So the educational component is always actually really important. And usually it's best to have them delivered by industry incumbents, so people that are actually experts in the field. So we have 3 different tracks of focus depending upon the startup's need. So we focus either on B2B sales, on B2C user acquisition, or on fundraising.
Okay.
And for example, for the B2B sales, we actually do a 4-part B2B sales workshop where I bring in 4 different experts in the sales field that have built teams, that have sold to enterprise companies, to actually teach the content. So not only is that valuable experience in terms of the educational component, but that's another network expert that's coming in to work with you, then understands your company, and is able to provide support going forward.
Cool. And so going through that process, having been through, you've kind of gone through an accelerator yourself, it's structured differently. You're in one now, right? What's it like being on the inside? What's it like going through that process, even emotionally, right? I imagine it's very challenging, but I wouldn't know. I've never really been through that.
So do you mean working at the accelerator, or
No, I mean being for you, somebody going through it, and what people who probably are going through it for you. I know you mentioned just one example of that was the say that you have a lot of mentors all of a sudden, and you get a lot of opinions, and it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
What is it like being someone on that side of the table?
Yeah, it can be overwhelming, and there's a lot of doubt, right? So it's what do they call that? They call it when you or you think you're being never mind.
Let's say it could be analysis.
Imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Which happens. It happens to founders all the time, where they don't think they're a real founder, and that they haven't quite got there. And going through an experience like Startup Institute, same thing. You feel like you're actually just faking it until you make it. But you're not. You're in the program for a reason. You were selected because people see that there is promise in either your business or in your potential, and are excited to work with you. And they really believe, we only accept someone into a program if we really truly believe that we have enough of the resources to be able to successfully get you to where you want to go. And so, there's a lot of doubt that happens regardless. I mean, that was my experience going through a program, and, I got to, the outcomes that I was looking for, which is great, but it's a common across the board.
So how should people deal with it? Do you have certain recommendations or things that work for you that you find are useful for someone going through that?
Therapy? No.
No, I
mean,
health insurance, therapy included.
No, I mean, I think when you were saying before, having people to lean on, whether that's specific mentors or other people in the tech field, entrepreneurs that I admire and respect, or I know have my back and I can kind of talk about anything with, is really important. Having a support system is really valuable, and knowing that being reminded that you are in this program program for a reason.
Yeah, and being authentic with people.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just tell everybody everything's good all the time. If you want to have that deeper relationship, you got to pick some people that you're going to be super deep and authentic with. You're going to say, this is the specific things I'm having a challenge with right now, and it sucks. And like, I don't want to just, I want to give you, I want you to be an ear for me, but also like, what advice, what have you seen? What would you recommend? And start collecting data from people. Yeah,
I think that's a big issue too, especially that I've seen kind of, or a cultural difference between like US and international like founders is like founders, especially in the US, want to, even more so than internationally, like everything's like beautiful, everything's rosy, like I have everything under control, and have like a lot more pressure on themselves, as opposed to a lot of international founders are a little bit more like, it's okay. It's not great, So I think that is something that to consider.
Do you think part of it is culturally in America, our identity is more tied up in what we're doing?
It's really interesting. I've had a lot of discussions about that recently with international founders. Like I've met a few Numa alumni. I had lunch with one last week that had done the program in Paris in like 2012. And, he is coming to the US now, and he has this really awesome like video production startup, and they were talking to people in LA that are their competitors, and they were like, oh, we've never heard of you. And they're like, well, that's funny because I've been like watching your progress for the last 5 years. So like America is very America-centric, whereas we don't, even when we do a competitive landscape, like we're not often looking at like what's actually outside of the US, where internationally, if you're a company and you do a competitive landscape, you're definitely looking at exactly what people in the US are doing.
Yeah, so one thing we like to do, because we only have a few minutes left, is always ask our guests, just for general advice you would provide founders. Like anything you've learned over your time in this space that you think, the 3 or 4 things that if people walk away, they go, these are 3 or 4 things that I should remember that'll help me find success.
Yeah. So I would say build a network. Right, your network is really, really valuable. Even if you're the type of company that isn't community-based, have people that you can rely on. I would say be really clear about your kind of like roadmap and what advice that you are listening to. There's a lot of different things out there, but trust your gut, because I think you have the tendency to be right about that.
And on that, is it a part of that also being focused, right? That you get so much stuff thrown at you.
Exactly.
It's easy to lose focus when you feel like you have a lot of potential things to go after, and especially for you guys, you're dealing with companies who already taken a big leap to open up in the U.S. and they already have a market somewhere else.
Exactly. And then I think last but not least, which is just good for everyone, whether or not you're an entrepreneur, is just kind of live in a way that's like kind of fearless, right?
Yeah.
Like don't be afraid of failure, because that will always stop your progress. You need to, always be kind of moving forward in a way that's like, if it fails, we're going to be able to solve the problem. So solutions, which is like really more just like solutions focused. If you have that kind of mindset of like, we'll always be able to solve it, whether that's a pivot, whether that's like a fire, doesn't matter, you can solve it, right? Everything can be solved.
Yeah, do not be afraid to be the person who shows up on Halloween in an outfit.
Yeah.
Or if you're watching the second season of Stranger Things, don't be afraid to be the kids who didn't realize that in high school you don't wear your costumes to school. Don't be those kids.
That's me. Don't be this kid.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Frances, for joining us. Thanks everybody for joining again for another founder sessions. We look forward to seeing you guys in the future, and hopefully you found this educational. Drop comments in if you have any questions, and we'll always get back to you.
Thanks.